You guys know in our channel we usually recommend top 10 free-to-play games, especially low-end PC games. But today in this video, I'm gonna do something special. I'm not only going to recommend in these games, I'm actually going to play every single one of them on my low-end laptop and show you guys the exact result, real-time frame rate, and sharing my experience about what it really feel like to play a game on such a low-end system. So we got a total of 10 awesome games to check out today. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into it. Alright guys, for this test, I dig up my old dusty laptop, reinstalled Windows and installed a bunch of games on it. So I bought this one way back in 2016, which was about 9 years ago. So in terms of system specs, this one got an Intel Core i5-7200U, which is a very basic processor, only comes with 2 cores and 4 threads, which is barely enough to run some of the modern day Windows stuff. And talking about the Windows, of course I'm running Windows 10 on it. It does not officially support Windows 11. So in terms of graphics, this one got an Intel HD 620 graphics, which is a very old basic integrated graphics solution. It was barely enough to run games back in the day, so I'm not expecting any high-end performance here. And the only good thing about this laptop that it's comes with 8 gigs of RAM, which I think is the bare minimum you need to get some decent gaming experience. Most of the games that I'm testing today work well even with 4 gigs of RAM, but since we are running the game on Intel HD graphics, having more RAM is definitely helpful. Alright, I'm starting with a game called A.W.O.L, a very easy to run, free to play single player tactical first person shooter. And according to their Steam page, the minimum system requirement does look very low specs friendly. You only require to have any 64-bit CPU, 1 gigs of RAM and a 512MB of VRAM if you have a graphic card. If you don't have that, it also does support Intel HD graphics, so I'm hoping the game should run fairly well in my system. And for the most part, the game does run pretty well, but some of the areas seems to me a bit demanding on the system, so you will see a lot of frame drops, especially if you are playing the game on 1080p. So I had to turn down some of the settings. I dropped the resolution to 720p and I turned off some of the textures and view distance. So after that, I got a pretty decent frame rate overall, especially when you're in indoor level. You usually get around 70-80 FPS without any issues, but when you're in a gunfight or any tight situation, you will notice some frame drops here and there. And also if you're in more like an open-ended level, like an open area, you will get around 35-50 FPS with some frame drops here and there. It is totally playable, but I can't expect more performance out of this, especially considering this one is a very less demanding game with some pixelated graphics, but overall I'm happy with the performance. Alright, moving on to our next game, we got a super popular arcade racing game that is Asphalt Legends Unite. The game is very fast-paced, flashy and over-the-top action, so I'm kind of expecting some mixed performance here, but looking at the overall minimum system requirement, it seems like a fairly easy game to run on a low-end PC. So according to the Steam page, the game does require you to have an Core i3 3rd Gen CPU with 8 gigs of RAM and an Intel HD 4600 graphics or an all NVIDIA GT 630. So very light on the graphical side, should be able to run the game fairly well as long as you have enough RAM on your system. So when I jump into the game, I'm actually kind of surprised how well this game ran on my system. I was able to run the game on 1080p on 70% resolution scale, but I turned down all the unnecessary settings like shadow resolution, shadow quality or depth of field, things like that. So on 1080p low settings, I was able to easily get around 40-60 FPS most of the time without any major hiccups, frame drops or lags or anything like that. I tried out different tracks, different weather conditions, nothing will impact on the performance. You'll get a fairly smooth 45 FPS. I can literally play this game all day like this. So overall, I'm super happy with the performance. So if you're looking for a fun arcade racing game to play on your low-end PC, this is hands down one of the best options available on the market. Moving on to the most popular free-to-play first-person shooter game among low-end PC gamers, and that is Combat Masters. Obviously, this game is super popular among a lot of people, so I'm expecting to see some great performance here. And honestly, system requirements are very basic. All you need is an Intel Core 2 processor, 4 gigs of RAM, and a video card with 256MB, and should run fairly well with Intel HD graphics. I tried out the game on 1080p, it was a little bit more demanding on the GPU side, so I dropped the resolution to 720p and also turned down all the unnecessary settings. So on 720p low settings, I was able to get a very respectable frame rate around 65-80 FPS. There is no major FPS drops, lags or anything like that. The game ran buttery smoothly on my system. I also tried out some of the remastered map they add to the game, which seems to me a bit demanding on the GPU side, so I was get around 40-60 FPS, somewhat difficult to play, get kills with lower frame rate. All in all, I'm pretty happy with the game. There's no wonder why this game is very much popular among low-end PC gamers. Moving on to a super popular platformer fighter game with millions of players, and yes, we are talking about Brawlhalla. Honestly, a super easy game to run on PC, consoles, even on Android and iOS. And also the system requirement doesn't really say much, all you need is just 2 gigs of RAM, and it does show on the performance side. The game is very easy to run buttery smoothly on 60 FPS locked. Apparently there's no any way to change any settings or resolution or anything like that. The game runs smoothly right out of the box on 1080p 60 FPS. Pretty easy game to run, very well optimized. So there is no any major surprises here. Moving on, next up we got Bloodstrike, another very popular battle royale game to play right now. And this game used to run very well on low-end PCs, but when the game launched on Steam, it comes with a pretty high minimum system requirements. If you look at it now, it says you need to have an i3 8th-gen CPU with 8 gigs of RAM and an NVIDIA GTX 960 graphics card. So if these minimum system requirements are actually true, there's no way I'm gonna run this game on Intel HD graphics. And obviously running this game on 1080p resolution is going to be very demanding. So I'm gonna turn all of these settings to low and also the resolution. So I'm possibly running the game right now on 720p low settings. So this is a battle royale game with a massive map. So when you're dropping down from the plane, the frame rate is all over the place. You will notice some lags here and there. But when you're actually on the ground, surprisingly, everything runs very smoothly. I was easily able to get around 60 to 80 FPS pretty much all the time, and this is very respectable performance considering we are running the game on this little Intel HD graphics, but there are few FPS drops here and there, especially when you're in a gunfight. Other than that, the game runs very smoothly. The game is totally playable on Intel HD graphics. I was even able to get the second place on this map, so you can completely ignore the minimum system requirement they mention. You absolutely don't need to have an NVIDIA graphic card to play this. Moving on to a couple of low-end PC games with very similar system requirements, and both games are made by Danny using Unity engine, so I'm expecting very similar performance here. First one is the game called Muck, an awesome free-to-play survival roguelike game, pretty fun game to play with friends, and as long as you have a dual-core CPU, 2 gigs of RAM and Intel HD graphics, you should be able to run this game fairly easily. When I actually jumped into the game, I kinda had some issues running the game at first. I tried out the game on 1080p low settings, but it's somewhat demanding on the system side. I was only get around 25 FPS, which is barely enough to run the game. Then I changed the resolution to 720p, which resulted me around 40 to 50 FPS, which made the game very much playable, but you won't be able to reach that 60 FPS mark, but still the game is very playable on 720p low settings. Next up we got Trap Game, another super popular game to play right now. This one also required to have a similar system requirements, Core i3 CPU, 2 gigs of RAM and Intel HD 520 graphics. So I went ahead and tried out the same settings on 720p low. I was easily able to get around 40 to 60 FPS just like the previous game. Overall the game runs pretty well, there is no any major performance issues. Next up we got a super underrated multiplayer tactical shooter called Polygon, a somewhat of a demanding title to play on a low-end PC, but I still went ahead and tried the game out because I want to see how the game actually performs. So according to the minimum system requirement, this one required to have an Core i3 CPU, 4 gigs of RAM and an NVIDIA GTX 460, which is a very old graphic card at this point, but still somewhat powerful than our little Intel HD graphics. But when I actually jump into the game, it seems like the game is even more demanding on the GPU side. I was really struggling to play this game. I dropped down the resolution to 1024 by 768 and turned down all the settings to low. I was able to get around 35 FPS, but there was a lot of FPS drops, performance issues, especially when you're playing the game on low settings. The visibility is absolutely terrible. I couldn't even get a single kill, so I wouldn't recommend you guys trying the game out, especially if you have Intel HD graphics. But if you have any sort of a dedicated graphic card on your system, you can expect much better performance. Moving on to our last couple of games, next up we got Banana Shooter, a fun casual party shooter to play right now, and this game is also built upon using the Unity engine, so we can expect pretty much the same performance here. It requires you to have an i3 CPU, 2 gigs of RAM and Intel HD 520 graphics. So I tried out pretty much the same settings, 720p low. I was actually able to reach 60 FPS around 50 to 60 most of the time, a very acceptable frame rate. The game ran pretty smoothly without any performance issues. Considering this is some sort of a fast-paced first-person shooter, you actually need that 60 FPS to get a playable experience, but overall I'm happy with the performance. And our final game, we got Walking Zombies 2, a single-player zombie survival game with an interesting story. So according to the game's minimum system requirement, on the CPU side, you need to have an Intel Core i3 CPU and also a dedicated graphic card that supports DirectX 11. But unfortunately, they haven't mentioned anything regarding the RAM requirement. When I actually jumped into the game, I couldn't really find a way to change the resolution or in-game settings. So I'm assuming this is running on native 1080p. The game was a bit demanding on our little Intel HD graphics, but I was still able able to get more than 30 FPS most of the time, around 35, 40. Sometimes when you're in a gunfight, the frame rate tends to drop here and there. But considering this is a single player game, around 35 FPS is very acceptable and very playable in my opinion. Well, there you have it guys. I tested out 10 awesome games on my low-end laptop and show you guys the exact result, real-time frame rate, and hope this video helped you to get an idea how this game will run on your system. Hopefully I'll be able to make the part 2 of this video covering some other games. So if you have any requests, any games that you want to see run on Intel HD graphics, definitely go ahead and drop a comment down below as well. This video took me so much time and effort to make, so hope this video helpful to you, and if it does, don't forget to like the video, subscribe and stay tuned to the channel. I'll catch you guys soon in my next video. Stay safe.